Hello, my name is Veronica and welcome to the Learning Lab, Episode 9, Technique Using the Brayer. I'd like to share with you in today's lab how to use your brayer to get a topper for your cards similar to this. This lovely brayer technique that I'm going to demonstrate for you in today's lab involves everything you see here on the table, and I'm going to list them all at the end of this episode. So grab a cup of coffee, pencil and a piece of paper to take a few notes, and come on into today's lab and let's get rolling. Now, to get going, I'm going to start out on my craft mat, and I'm going to actually take down my piece of white card. And although I'm working on my craft sheet, I still have my wonderful homemade mat underneath because I'm going to do some stamping and I want this surface. And the stamp that I'm going to start with is my sympathy stamp. Usually, instead of trying to take my stamp and make sure I have it lined up on here where it needs to go, I will take it, put it face down onto my work surface so that I can see it. Then I'll take my acrylic block and position it that way. And now I know that it's on there, even and ready to go. So let's pull this back in and get ready to stamp our sentiment. And this is actually going to end up being 2 cards. So we're going to start out with our Versamark and really ink this up well. As close to the bottom as I can get it. Then I'm going to flip this around and do the same thing to the other side. And I'm using some of this ultra detail embossing powder because my stamp has such intricate fine lines, and this is a clear one. So heat it. Normally I will heat mine from the bottom because it makes it a little more glassy and doesn't give you that dimpled look. But I'm going to do it from the top since I have it all taped down. Now we're ready to apply some ink to our image. I have some extra paper lying around because I'm going to need to use my brayer on that. I'm using the Big and Juicy Hydrangea. Here we're using this light speed ball brayer because I want to know where my ink is going and have a little more control. When I'm using one solid color ink or darker solvent inks, I generally will go with this black one. It's not as soft, but I don't have to worry about it staining and convoluting any colors that might come after it. So today we're going with this one. Let's get our pad over you to do when it comes to using the brayer. I'm going to go ahead and start to ink up my brayer. I want to stay down in the green, blue, purple range. And I'm just inking so that I can see what I have on there. Believe it or not, I'm going to come straight to my paper with this. But before doing so, I'm going to mask this off because I only want my color around this aperture opening. I just use one of my nestability dies and cut the aperture there. So this is going to kind of serve as my mask. Now that I have that where I want it, I'm going to take my brayer and just go straight across my sympathy. I know. Then I'm going to go over to my extra paper that I have, and I'm going to take off some of that color. Now I know this is the exact opposite of what people tell you to do because look, this is actually turning out very beautiful, but that's what I want over here. I want a deep saturation of color. So I'm going to go back and forth over this image to get that look. Again, removing some of the excess over here on my other piece. And you just keep going until you have it blended as well as you would like for it to be. And once you have your look, lift it off, and voila, that's what you have. Now I'm going to turn around and do the same thing to this opposite side. So I've removed the tape, and now I'm going to cut these apart and just loosely cut around with my scissor, and I'm not going to make you watch me do this. And there they are cut out. I'm just going to take my dry paper toweling and go over the top just to bring out the white. So now that it's all cleaned up, we're going to apply it to the front of our card. I'm going to use a technique that I shared with you in episode 8, except what I've done now is that I've run this through my Cuttlebug folder to get that rich, deep embossing. When I was removing that excess ink from here, it would have been nice to go ahead and run this over my card, but no worries, I can take care of that now. So again, bringing in that big and juicy pad and my brayer, I'm going to go ahead and pick up some color. Again, using that same technique of just rolling back and forth until I kind of get what I want, except I don't want this card to be as saturated as my piece, so I'm going to do what most people suggest and just take off a bit of the color. Now my brayer is not quite, it's probably the same width as my card, but I don't want to trust it, so I'm going to go this way on my card. So let's open that out, and because mistakes do happen, especially to me, I'm going to cover this. So I'll just take my brayer and give a light roll. Then I'm going to turn my card going the other way, picking up that green. I'm going to give it another roll. And just going back and forth. And then I'll turn it and come back here and do the same thing of the back and forth motion. And it gives me my nice color without cross-contaminating. Okay? And so there's that. I like to keep a clean brayer, so I'm just going to lay my white down and go ahead and remove the rest of that ink. And make sure you roll your edges, because paint does get picked up in that. Then I'm going to follow that with my well-loved dry paper toweling, just to make sure all of my ink is out. And that way my brayer stays true to color. Pull the ribbon, and inside is your message to the person. I used a quote here, but feel free to include your personal sentiments down there. You could also enclose a gift card for a maid service, maybe a gift certificate to a local restaurant, or just coffee at a local coffee shop. Sympathy cards are difficult, but unfortunately they are needed. And what a wonderful way to let someone know that you're thinking of them, you care about them, and you're there if they need you. Thank you for joining me in this episode of The Learning Lab. Please check out my blog at inkollusions.blogspot.com. Until then,